Tonight on Ground Crew Command Radio. As soon as we have all the technical sound checks out of the way, we will go live. This is May 23rd, 2025, 4 p.m. Eastern. Let me just get through the headlines while I get, or until I get the thumbs up that we definitely can be heard. I know there's always a long delay. So let's get started.
I don't hear anything. I don't know what's up with you and your microphone.
Okay, I should be live now. Testing. Okay, apparently, yep, it was the delay. I knew it. Okay. Apologies for the usual delayed thumbs up on the sound check. This is Ground Crew Command Radio. Tonight, we will get into, first of all, the event itself. Will it happen gradually or all at once? And what to do, how to handle that. What all this intense ascension period since March eclipses are really building up to accomplish. And now this has inspired a specific public campaign here at 144 HQ for a major public 3D push for first contact for starseeds. The truth about the economy, and no, it's not tanking, what the Golden Dome is really intended for, and what it's actually hooked up to, what the Dragnet on Cabal member, on the Dark Ones, and the export of non-legals is really being used as a cover for, which of course is highly classified. Thankfully, the light forces have this. And the problem with experts giving great explanation on what's going on with the energies in terms of healing, facing your shadow, but how do you really handle that? How to best handle that? And I'll get into the ins and outs of that and why just telling people to just face your shadow head on is not necessarily the best advice, but certainly the right direction. That this is critical. That'll really turn things around for you. This is your loving servant, the Unknown Night Warrior. You're listening to Ground Crew Command Radio. And we're back. This is your loving servant, the Unknown Light Warrior. You're listening to Ground Crew Command Radio. Apologies for the delayed, I suppose, confirmations that the sounds are working. Now, it's easy to forget the very before and after kind of pictures. You know how you always see in those, to use a very mundane 3D example, those before and after pictures of weight loss images of ads. And you see the person very overweight in one, and then side-by-side picture, two or 3 months later, they're very slim. Think of the March eclipse, well, really it's all of April and most of May, but think of the March eclipses as the before and the after. Pre-March before and post-March after. That has set off such a huge cascade of the deepest level, foundational core fabric of reality change. the most ancient of recoding, both of the external matrix down to the surface finally, as well as our internal aspects, physical and non-physical bodies, DNA, real recoding. It's like, to use computer terminology, the hard code of a given software is being changed. And obviously the increases in frequency have been extreme. You know, I've been feeding you bits and pieces of information of other experts that understand what's coming through, not just from the sun, but also as it relates to the heliosphere of the whole solar system, almost collapsing. And again, in recent days, collapsing again. So that, for those of you who don't know, the heliosphere is the part where the most outer magnetic reaches, or solar winds, or sphere of the sun, reaches the galactic cosmic energies, frequencies of the galaxy. And where they meet, that's and they have a kind of equilibrium. The sun side is now greatly dropped. Its magnetosphere, therefore heliopause throughout the whole solar system, around the solar system, I should say, has greatly dropped. So now we're getting real, true galactic central sun and galactic cosmic codes, photons, X-rays, gamma rays reaching us as well and really entering the solar system. So it's not just from the sun with the CMS and X-class and plasma coming from the sun. This is the matrix change simulator codes being received and downloaded, installed and run, just like a program on your computer, from the sun and from ultimately the galactic central sun. It's all, so it's two things at once. So if you've been feeling a background nervousness, background sort of uncertainty or fear, in some people's cases anxiety, real uncertainty, that is a natural reaction of the mind and body sensing a very new and unknown path. And that's normal. Okay, that happens to most of us. But I want to, and ultimately comes down to the primordial fear of death, really. Am I going to be okay? But here's the thing, those primordial fears are also being cleared. And as many of you know, in the process of being cleared, they momentarily pass through your conscious awareness or emotional body as it's coming and passing through for release. And yes, sometimes that hits blocks where you really have to heal something, not just past life, current life as well. And we'll get into that later, because that makes this ascension process a world of a difference once you have that down pat, which doesn't take much. But the matrix simulation itself, in other words, life, fully recoded, fully changing very rapidly, hence the intensities. When you get these jumps, much shorter periods of ascension, that's the matrix being recoded, and you at the bodily level, DNA level, being recoded, altered. And it'll pass. Okay, but we need this matrix to return, to be recoded, dark codes removed, divine codes downloaded and installed and run, to return the divine blueprint or divine version of this 3D simulation, so-called matrix. There is such a thing as a divine matrix, in case you're not aware. But divine matrices, you can come and go, travel physically or with your consciousness, whatever. That you have complete freedom. Just to be clear, there's no unknown sort of consciousness control or manipulation that you have to worry about with the original divinely intended matrix. Because really every density and every dimension and plane is its own matrix. It's just a question of whether it's the divine or the, shall we say, not so divine, which we're clearly leaving. Now, and as it comes to the not so divine version and the golden dome, we'll get into that. And so we're still pushing through towards the end of this big spurt, if I can use that term, because it comes in spurts, these ascension. It's not just it is sort of gradual, one aspect, but then there's these big spurts that last anywhere from a month to 2 or 3 months. And then it evens off or stays at that higher level of frequency and just goes up from there more gradually, perhaps. So that's the backdrop of all that's coming out. And with that, again, it brings up a lot of personal stuff as well. That's the thing. It brings up a lot of personal stuff. And I'll get into that because more people need more support with that as it relates to, especially the 5 archways that we're going to be a better version of it releasing soon. And the first initial version of it, was amazing enough. I'm going to provide testimonials for that. That, again, it's relatively easy to do for the average non-psychic. Okay. Now the whole jumps or spurts in ascension as opposed to gradual, that dovetails into the whole event itself that most of you have been, aware of since, at least 2012 predominantly. And okay, so you got to ask yourself, and many people are asking, is it gradual? Will it happen at once? The short answer is it is both. Okay, there is, I would even say 60% or predominantly gradual. Okay, because, for one, you can't detox in one day. You'll die. You'll get overwhelmed. You can't detox a whole planet, the layers of grids, veil, interferences, what have you. All right, that's not going to happen at once. It'll explode the planet. There'll be earthquakes galore. It'll probably cause a polar shift, to be frank. And you also can't tell the flat out truth about reality, hidden negative ET occupation, the truth about the matrix that we're undoubtedly leaving now. Yeah. So it's done gradually, and that's clear and apparent for the most part, for a long time now. But there's also 2 other factors that's interesting. First of all, there's the element of major spurts of forward movement, big jumps in the liberation process. As an example, where people start seeing UFOs everywhere and start talking about these orbs, for example, massive disclosures about what happened in 2020, with the lockdown and, or, ET disclosure and so forth, disclosures about the existence of whatever form of hidden control, physical and non-physical, that comes out in spurts and really raises the awakening. Economic collapse and behind the scenes overhaul of the financial system. That's more gradual, but sometimes it happens in spurts as well. Okay. So and those jumps or spurts, think of them as mini events. Okay. That's a good way to put it, mini events. So you got the gradual event or gradual version of the event, which has clearly been happening. And then you got mini events that are very overt, clearly happening. ET disclosure as a classic example. Okay. And so forth. And the third factor is inevitably, sooner or later, and clearly it's coming in 2025. I'll get into why later, shortly. There's a third element where both the gradual version of the event occurring, as well as these jumps, these spurts of mini events or spurts of rapid ascension, clearly and inevitably they're going to build up to a certain point where it breaks out, unavoidably so, into the physical, or finally reaches down to the physical surface of this third density. Okay, that's an inevitability. It's just a question of, at this point, which month at this point. And yes, a lot of it is also dependent on astrology, because astrology is basically the cosmos. In other words, the team of beings that created this universe in conjunction with Source, of course, saying, okay, it's now time for X to happen. It's now time for Y to happen. All right. Such as the Uranus Cazimi, Uranus going in the heart of the sun. All right. Uranus all about absolute rebellion, freedom, innovation, technological revolution, revolutions in general, totally going outside the box. And the sun, being in the heart of the sun, that's what a Cazimi is, blows that right up, radically amplifies that to its maximum. And that only happened on 17th of May this month. And that was passing or transiting through Taurus, one of the most grounded, but also rigid, difficult to move or change of the earth signs, of the zodiac in general, let alone the earth sign. And both the sun and Uranus have been, as of the 17th, as if the crazy changes before that haven't been deep and fundamental enough, have been really forcing the last remaining deepest, typically unknown, unseen, and subconscious, both collectively and individually, changes that need to happen of a revolutionary, freedom, innovation orientated way or sense, that being Uranus. And that's only been happening for the past, 5-6 days. It's the 23rd today. This is on the 17th. And that's still having its effect. So all that's building up to that inevitable breakout onto the physical. Okay. That many refer to as, ET disclosure or galactic family reunion even. release and announcements of free technology, free energy technologies, advanced technologies, the existence of the physical and non-physical dark ones, all that, even mass landings. Those are going to happen a little bit more sequentially than that. What you'll want to think about, so that anyway, that's the proper context and perspective of understanding of the gradual build up, the gradual aspect of the event, and also interspersed with jumps in ascension, energetic ascension, and mini events. Okay. A mini event I would call the congressional hearings on ET disclosure, that kind of thing, and it's all out. People seeing orbs and ET craft, UAPs as I call them now. That's a mini event. Okay. And clearly, thanks to Uranus Cazimi, as one example, let alone the intense post-eclipse period changes and recoding of the matrix and our DNA, it's inevitably going to crack open onto the surface. And as star seeds, our focus primarily needs to be obviously internal healing. Once a week, shadow work with the best tools that you find works best and easiest to do at the same time. Looking after yourself first and foremost, all right, to get your frequency up so we can handle the extra incoming light and light codes, gamma rays, galactic photons, that is purifying, reaching this physical surface and purifying us, which can be uncomfortable if you don't do, on a regular enough basis, shadow work. Other than that, look to that moment where safe off-world contact, ET, galactic family, whatever you want to call it, or Agarthan contact actually occurs privately, inconspicuously, just with you, in terms of you only, where you're contacted privately, remotely at first, maybe through remote communications, perhaps. That would be unsurprising. Then followed by actual, it might not even be physical appearance of our off-world benevolent beloved. It could be just like seeing them non-physically, kind of like apparitions kind of thing. You might start off that way. Or they might start off visiting you in the sleep state, so-called dream state, to then shortly be followed by actual physical visitations. Privately on your own home, own property, for starseeds that know the deal and for the most part are waiting for that galactic family reunion, galactic family contact. Very private, personal sort of event. That's another example of a mini event. And that's much more likely to happen for us starseeds long before any huge disclosures. Well, it's already happening, but you know what I mean. The event, I'm referring to the event as it's been sold to us, mass landings and so forth. No, that's going to happen later as it relates to the collective. The collective are going to have a very different experience a much more longer and gradual one in every sense of the word, whether it's disclosure about the physical and non-physical dark ones, disclosure about suppressed technologies, everything that you and I both know about. Yeah, that is going to be a lot more gradual by comparison. But focus on that inevitable breakout mini event in your personal life, especially as it relates to first contact in whatever form that takes. Again, that is way more likely to occur before the so-called, official disclosures, mass landings, and so forth. Yeah, that's going to happen. Bashar said that'll happen in 2027 in terms of mass landings where the whole unconscious surface population, it's, out. It's in their faces now. Galactic craft flying all over the place and you can't miss it unless you're literally blind. So the trick is, as always, is to get yourself okay now, asking your higher self and I am presence or your guides. I'd recommend all three. How? What's the quickest and easiest way to get myself okay now so that any waiting for my own private galactic family contact is not really an issue, that I am able to wait and wait comfortably so. And as far as that's concerned, again, it'll happen. Yeah, it's going to happen for us long before it'll happen for the collective and unconscious majority. And as far as that's concerned, when I was looking at the astrology back in January, one astrologer said, and this is huge, that by the second half or throughout the second half of 2025, all the outer planets are going to change positions. And he said that more or less, as far as modern recorded time is concerned, never happens. You'll get 1 or 2, 3 the most, because outer planets, because they're outer, they move way slower than the inner planets, therefore far less regularly. And when they do move, it has a much bigger impact, huge impact. It often opens up whole new cycles in our personal lives and collective that last anywhere from 7 to 20-something years, such as Pluto entering Aquarius last November to bring about revolution. And so much bigger impact when even 1 or 2 of them move and change positions. Far bigger impact that lasts for far longer than the inner planets. Now, when they all move within one, 4 to 6 month period, which never happens, pretty much, according to this guy, this astrologer, that's as profound as it gets. That is full-blown, complete change at all levels. And that's just the astrology. And yes, it is one of the primary fundamental influences, no doubt. And that is going to happen within, or finish happening, because it's already started. Again, the example of Pluto moving into Aquarius last November, that was one of the first things that happened. So it's already happened or already starting, but by the second half of, I don't know if it's October or November, where the last final outer planet that hasn't moved yet does move. Um, yeah, they will have all moved by the end of the second half of this year, 2025. That's extreme. And really, you wouldn't want change to happen any faster than that because it'll be too much. Again, and I know 80% of you know exactly what I mean. Tell me how difficult and intense the energies have been, how destabilized they've been, transitional, discombobulating, intense, often triggering intense emotions because of the cosmic photonic plasma gamma ray purges going through your mental and emotional bodies and physical bodies, bringing up all the childhood stuff, for example, not just past life stuff. All right, especially since the March lunar eclipse, where it all really started. I know, again, 80% of you will be nodding your heads saying, yeah, I wouldn't be able to handle any more intensity than that. Because that's what rapid ascension is like. Now, the good news is it will be easier in the future with regards to any huge rapid spurts in ascension that last anywhere from 1 week to a 3-month period. Only because the acclimation that we've been going through now since March, eclipses. Remember, eclipse periods, especially this one in March, which marked the end of the um, Aries eclipse season, which started back in October 2023. Okay, Aries eclipse season or eclipses in Aries started in October 13th, 2023. April 8th, again in 2024, we had that eclipse. And then again, March and the 2 eclipses in mid and late March. That ends Aries eclipse season. And the March eclipses, lunar and partial solar, which were profound and so intense, that just pulled the ripcord, the final ripcord on anything that's been keeping us in chains. Physical, non-physical, all levels, internal, external, the deepest fundamental recoding of divine blueprints, both at our DNA level and the matrix level, all going back to the divine. That was a whole culmination. The March eclipse period was a whole culmination of all of this. That started back in October 2023 with the first eclipse in Aries, or Aries eclipse season. So that's the deal. Okay. For the collective, well, for all of us, the event is gradual with spurts of ascension and mini events culminating, just like this eclipse season culminated with the March eclipse period, culminating in the quote unquote event of the biggest disclosures, mass landings, blah, blah, blah. So that's why I'm saying focus on your private mini event, both internal shadow work breakthroughs, and believe me, that does build up and makes you ascend way more gracefully and easily without the, emotional whatever volatilities. And the mini event of that private galactic family contact. that was always, for you personally, that was always going to happen before the collective version, open collective version of galactic contact. So that's what to primarily focus on. The light forces and white hats, they are understandably they're trying to move as fast as they can. But like an insider said, you got to remember, we only get one go with this. We only get one chance at this. So you still have to be careful to not screw anything up. So they are going as fast as they can for the collective sake. So focus on the mini events and private galactic family contact. That's where you want to look at and focus more on, be more preoccupied with. That's where how you want to handle that. The breakout, the event as it's been sold, that's an inevitability. As always, it's just a question of when. That's why I'm so focused on setting up more than just healing methods and systems for star seeds. There's a couple of things being worked on that'll come out in the next few weeks and couple of months that you can look forward to. It's all about just making it okay for yourself now, so that the inevitabilities won't be any kind of painful or uncomfortable wait or path. So that's that. Your mini event, personal mini event. That's where your primary focus needs to be. And to that effect, I am going to launch a public campaign. Those websites where, you call for signatures, where there's websites, it's like a petition kind of thing where you call for people to sign something to push for something publicly. And then you get all these digital signatures to then pass on to whatever private or governmental body that they have to, and it puts pressure on them that the public is now demanding X, Y, or Z. That's what I'll be doing soon for safe, private galactic family contact for star seeds only. And there's more to it than that. That makes it even more exciting. I don't want to disclose too much yet. Because again, when it comes to the collective, the unconscious majority with galactic off-world contact, let alone disclosure, that's a very different story and certainly a more gradual and slower process. All right. I really have you and every other Awaken Aware star seeds, beginning with active star seeds that participate in mass meditations, first and foremost in my heart and mind, and love for that matter. Because partly also because we're in this together and we need to lift each other up in whatever way per our unique soul purpose and therefore abilities to look after ourselves, to make the path to the event way more, easier and comfortable, not just shorter. So we got that happening. Now, before I get into the whole Golden Dome thing, the truth about the economy, okay. First of all, I know that most of you don't follow the mainstream corporate media, where it's full-blown as doom and gloom as you can get with regards to the economies is concerned. None of that's true. I've come across a YouTuber called Mark Moss, And this guy's 3D, but he's really good, and you really got to have to follow along with his 20-minute videos about all the indicators, statistics, measurements, trajectories, trends, etc. He's really good at looking underneath the bonnet, so to speak, when it comes to the economy. And he says the fundamentals are actually looking better than ever when you look underneath the hood. And it's not just inflation that's going down, although, well, certainly in the US it's going down. And it's more than just, well, apparently it's up to 8 trillion. Initially it was 5 trillion in the first quarter, 8 trillion of investment money coming into the US. All right, and that's not including old patriot money that they've had since triple four that they've had since at least 2012, at least, and taking control of the gold reserves. That's not including that. And by the way, that's about 70 trillion. The point is, and all that money is many times over more than enough to cause the biggest manufacturing, infrastructural, transformative boom that makes the manufacturing industrial boom of World War II in the US pale into nothingness. You know, that's all happening. What this guy Mark Moss says, as just as one example, is the reason why things initially looked really bad, the operative word being looked bad, is because government spending was playing a huge role in propping up the economy, propping up a whole heap of employment and garbage industries. And I'll use the term tentatively. Okay. That's dramatically dropped with Doge and whatnot and executive orders. That's dramatically dropped. Hence why some of the indicators looked bad for a while. And for the real economic growth factors, the organic economic growth factors, to have a chance to breathe and come to the surface. And yes, it'll be the US initially that'll experience the economic boom that will hit the surface, so to speak, and be very overt and in your face, where even the corporate media can't concerned. Apparently, from November to January, according to Q, the Storm Rider, from November to January is where initially the US economy is going to boom. That's where, it's there. Economic transformation. Now, it could happen a little earlier than that, but that's what he says. And he's been pretty consistent. So no, the economy is not tanking. All right, let's get on to the Golden Dome and what it's intended for, because that's one of the main topics for most people's minds, and what it's actually hooked up to. All right. Now, understandably, there's plenty of star seeds out there and alternative media, whatnot, that say the Golden Dome is dark, basically a dark control, surveillance, mind manipulation kind of system. Okay. And that, the US president is really pushing for that, and that it's dark. And it's pretty doom and gloom. That's one side of the argument. And I can understand that. Intel sources, okay, there's a guy called Ariel who's really got his finger on the pulse. I don't have his details in front of me, along with Q the Stormrider, who's been not just very consistent, but again, undoubted insider, positive military contacts. They've been saying it's been, yes, it is all run by an AI and a vast super futuristic, actually, it's pre ancient. They've sort of refurbished it, modernized it, and integrated it into the positive military system as well, and eventually financial system and whatnot. But at the base of it all was actually very pre-ancient, even pre-Atlantean system. And to cut a long story short, it's dark AI. I wouldn't say 100% because I find whatever temporal bubbles in whatever in between time space kind of stuff, real exotic stuff. I find them occasionally. So I wouldn't say the negative AI is completely gone, but certainly 99% gone. And with that achieved, they're really sort of firing this thing up and preparing it for the final dragnet, final completion phase of all physical and non-physical dark ones and off-world dark ones. That whole AI system that's at the foundation of it is connected to portals, let's just say. Those portals are connected to the upper dimensions, 5D and up, or upper densities, all the way to source. Source consciousness itself has, and yes, the real thing, has long been in control, or I'll use the word inserted a lot. I know we don't like the word inserted, right? Inserted into the AI consciousness, forming the one thing. Okay, because you put consciousness within AI and they sort of become the one thing. And before some of you are saying, well, source doesn't need to be inside AI or in anything for that matter. Well, hold on. Okay. If that were the case, source wouldn't need to be in each of us in physical bodies, if that were true. So think about that. Our brains, electromagnetic system, is an electrical system with brain wiring and circuitry. You know, similar to a computer in some respects, in terms of the principle of it. So just park that in the back of your mind for now, is all I'm saying. Most of you know that whether it's Pleiadians, Sirians, Arcturians, Vegans, Procyon, etc., Taygetians or Taysetians, what have you, Agathans, don't think that they don't use super advanced AI technologies. If you think that they don't, you have another thing coming. Always have and always relied on it, especially fifth and sixth dimension. And this golden dome is hooked into and a part of their system as well. It's done within a protocol in conjunction with the positive military here on the surface. It's all integrated, working together as part of the reintegration into galactic society. And one of the things that is being used for is not just a lot more than just financial system, as you can imagine. Yes, it is a surveillance system to quickly jump on any time-space continuum sort of anomaly or rift in the time-space continuum where bad things occasionally pop out from. And they have to be onto that. You know, the Terran militaries here on the physical surface have to have ownership and responsibility for that. And for that, they need the technologies, thanks to the Galactic Confederation, for example. That they off-worlders can't do it for us. We have to learn these technologies, take control ourselves, and responsibility ourselves. Mount McKinley in that was seized by the positive military in January, which is why the US president mentioned it in his initial inaugural speech, how he renamed it to Mount McKinley. That was just comms, as he put it, that we have that central base as it relates to the Golden Dome. So parts of it, the Dark Ones had control. There were fights, and the good guys have, taken over these key pre-ancient grids. And so it's basically to finish off the last remaining physical and non-physical Dark Ones, but also penetrations into our world, into this matrix or physical surface, from whatever hidden realm, temporal bubble, in whatever other universe, and throughout the multiverse and so forth. They need to be looked at and seized upon and cleared. Because here's the other thing. The dragnet on the dark, physical and non-physical Dark Ones, and also the exporting, the removal of illegal immigrants and gangs and so forth. It's being used for that, but also underneath the positive military, all the real classified aspects of the positive military, obviously, they bump into the occasional little portal or rift in the time-space continuum or temporal bubble, that there's some dark things that exist and come out whenever they're discovered. And the positive military, they need to be onto that. The light forces have to be onto that and jump onto it straight away. I know a very special starseed. She was driving around on a Saturday night, I'll just say somewhere in the Appalachians, and she noticed 20 cop cars, lights flashing and so forth. She got stopped. She got looked at. You okay? We're just doing a driver's license check, whatever. And then they let her go. But here's the thing. There was no one around. No one, nothing. It was in a very remote place. She was the only car on the road. This was late Saturday night, pretty much midnight. She felt fear. Something very weird and unknown, because she's very sensitive at a kinesthetic, somatic level, like many starseeds are, especially female starseeds. And she hasn't been able to get out of her mind. And it reminds me of that incident, this is 2 years ago now in Miami, where people were running for their lives out of a shopping mall where they saw beings. And there were something like more than 100 cop cars outside the shopping mall. For what? Because, the cops didn't see anything. More than 100 cop cars. You all know that whole street full of downtown Miami full of cop cars. That was one of those rifts, temporal anomalies or bubbles where some non-physicals or negative ETs came out of, trying to invade here. Now, it's not an issue. If it wasn't an issue 2 years ago, it's not an issue now. But it's things like that is what the Golden Dome is for in terms of its true occult or esoteric purpose. It's like anything else. The thing itself is not the issue. It's who controls it and with what intent, for what purpose and intent. That's all that matters. It's like, pick your analogy. A hammer can be used to build a house or kill someone. Fire can be used to save life and save lives and eat or burn stuff down. Classic case of that. I'm just going to say that's my information about the Golden Dome. And you don't have to believe me. Certainly consider both sides of the argument. And I suppose stick with not just what resonates with you, but stick with true insider information, positive military information typically, that has always been pretty reliable in the past. Not just resonated. Just go with that. I don't have to take my word for that. So anyway, underneath the surface with the whole dragnet of clearing out the dark ones, so-called, deep state and so forth, and illegal immigrants, clearing them out, namely the dangerous ones. Underneath, that's what's going on, especially as it relates to, these temporal bubbles, that more exotic things come out of those rifts in the time-space continuum. That's what's really going on. That's what the Golden Dome is really for. All right. Now, quite a few, I'm going to use the word public speakers, public figures that are great at what they do know. Just like me, I'm great at what I do know and not so great at what I don't know, of course. They're saying, all right, these purging cosmic winds, both entering the solar system, real divine, and to a degree, pre-ancient codes, entering the solar system, and of course the sun purging gamma rays, plasma, purging and downloading, altering our DNA and cellular structure to live off of light instead of food. Like, that's the kind of degree of fundamental change we're talking about. Yeah, it's bringing up internal stuff, causing anything from fatigue to procrastination to, irritability and upset, or sadness and grief to anxiety, or heart problems, physical organ problems, whatever it is that we have weaknesses around. It's bringing that stuff. And they say, well, you got to face the shadow head on, as one guy put it, who's been getting great information. And, not entirely untrue, but it is important to find the right methods and tools that allows you to be able to more comfortably handle healing, let alone healing your shadow. All right. And although I go on about the 4 phases, because those coded commands are so damn powerful, where it's not very dependent at all on visualization or the ICB or the 5 archways that's been improved upon and coming out in a week or 2, etc. Whatever. Make sure, test the tools out there, test the methods out there. Find one that works for you, mine or others, so that you can more comfortably be able to handle facing the shadow. It's not a do or die thing, but it does make things much more comfortable if you do find the right tool or methods that enables you to heal and clear your shadow. It allows you to ascend way quicker and easier. You don't want to ignore that. And as a last resort, okay, hire a one-on-one, have a one-on-one psychic healer or so forth, which is good to do from time to time anyway. You just don't necessarily want to be dependent on any per se. You want to be able to put on the right audio and you're in charge. Okay. Yeah, it takes a bit of discipline and commitment and desire and motivation. But, you don't want to have to suffer any continuous negativity of any form or kind, whether it's mental, emotional, physical. You don't have to endure that. And finding the right tool to face the shadow enables you to do that, to face the shadow without the fear, or certainly not much fear, where it's pretty manageable and you can do it. So if you've already been doing this and following that advice, don't stop. Have a go, then slow down for a few days or a few weeks, then have another go again. Weekly is enough just to make things easier for yourself. Okay. Again, the 5 Archways webinar, and there's a course and there's a webinar, and then a portion of that webinar will be edited down to a very usable, user-friendly, easy to do guided audio, and then support and a bit of training and Q&A after that. Okay. Now, there may be changes to that, alterations to that, because it's an evolving thing. It's a very fluid and evolving thing, this 5 Archways to Shadow work, which is why it's so damn potent. And I'll be giving you the testimonials and feedback on the 1.0 version of the 5 Shadow work, which is awesome. Anyway, moving on. And that concludes this week's episode of Ground Crew Command. Your support, by the 144K, your support network. Ground Crew Command Radio is all about supporting you, lifting you up, showing, helping you see the direction, which way to really look at and how to look at things and understand things, the right perspective, which always is critical when you have perspective and put things in their proper context. Makes a world of a difference. And that is that. I'm pretty sure I've covered all topics. Okay, just over an hour, although we had a slight delay at the beginning. And again, if you're listening to this on YouTube, do leave a comment. And, your not just your assessment on things, but specifically your response to this particular show, this broadcast, whether it helped you or not. Certainly share that in the comments on whatever social media platform this eventually will be on. And because we do check those to make sure we're catering for your needs as well. So I'll see you in a few days' time for the next episode of Ground Crew Command Radio. This is your loving servant, the Unknown Light Warrior. Don't forget, if you're listening to this and you're not a 144K Mass Meditation Group member yet for regular global meditations, other than getting direct support with our newsletter, you'll want to go to 144karmyoflight.org. Just go there and sign up. If it resonates, you love what you see, once you land on that page, sign up, and you also get interesting notifications for the next 144K Mass Meditation, which is only in 3 days' time, this coming Monday. It'll be Tuesday for the rest of the world. So late Monday night, May 26th, is the new moon in Gemini. which is very much a new beginnings and reset kind of a new month. The astrology is pretty positive around that, which we can use to our advantage, of course. So to get your time zone and precise live broadcast links to join in, go to the numbers 144, the letter K for Kappa, I don't know, Kevin, armyoflight.org. And I look forward to continuing to be your loving servant, to support you all the way to initially your mini event, and inevitably, if it even matters to you by then, the main event for the collective on the physical surface, where it's all out in the open. Personally, I'm just as excited, probably more excited about our own private personal mini event, that sacred moment of, you're walking, you just finished washing the dishes, you turn around and there they are, two of them, galactic family members. Or you hear their voices in your head, in your auditory cortex, when you're driving down the road one night or day. That's the event to really look forward to, where inevitably they'll heal or take you up, whatever. Because you can't push the unconscious majority too fast. Too much of a freak out factor. Okay, obviously, enough of them already freaking out just from the cosmic, galactic, and CME purges, X-class flare purges, just from that alone. So let's stabilize and upgrade the grid's frequencies and planetary timeline this Monday for the new moon 144K mass meditations, because ultimately, or to keep things basic, that's what 144K mass meditations are all about. Upgrade the collective planetary timelines for a far smoother and shorter pathway to the so-called big event, not just mini event. So be on there, and again, go to the website if you're not a member yet to get the direct notifications and live links for the live broadcast of that new moon in Gemini mass meditation. I think it's 10 p.m. Eastern, if I remember correctly, it starts. So again, 144K armyoflight.org. See you there, beloved ones. Together with the right tools, the right support, it's inevitable. We can get there. This is your loving servant, the unknown night warrior, signing off for now. See you next week.